What's up, UFO Garage? We're here with Les Velez, and he's part of the OPUS organization. Les, how you been today, man?
Oh, great. This is a heck of a conference here today, you know?
It's been
UFO
very
CON,
interesting for sure.
absolutely.
There's been a lot of great speakers, man. Eric Mitchell was awesome.
Oh.
He had a great
Oh.
presentation. Melinda. You just said Paul Hynek. He's always good. But yeah, it's been pretty awesome, man. So you're here with Opus,
Right.
right? Go on ahead and tell the people a little bit about your organization,
Sure,
man.
absolutely. Back in 1994, a doctor friend of mine, Eugene Lipson, we founded this organization called OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. And the mission of our organization is to help people that are having paranormal experiences and give them the kind of support they're looking for. And to back up a little bit on how this all came to be, I was initially a field investigator for MUFON. And all the cases that I got involved with eventually turned out to be abduction type cases.
Right.
And the people, wanted to know if there was other people that they could talk to about their experiences. And I said, well, actually I do know. And next thing I know, I'm facilitating a support group in San Jose. And so from that, I was written up in the Monterey Coast Weekly paper, and about what I was doing investigating UFOs. As a matter of fact, my picture was on the front cover of this weekly magazine.
Nice.
All right. So anyway, this woman from Carmel calls me and says, I'm in touch with these off-earthly entities, and I want to know what's going on with my brain waves. So I called a doctor friend of mine, and she was working with a emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And so I said, this is a great opportunity, because Eugene was looking for other doctors that he could, communicate with and interface with. So we went down there, and she started to tell us stuff about ourselves that there was no possible way she would know. And we found out that she had had a near-death experience and became very psychic afterwards.
Wow.
And so we came away from this meeting and saying, how can we possibly help people like this? And so Opus was hatched.
Awesome.
And, we have a network of medical people, mental health practitioners, hypnotherapists, various other types of consultants, like spiritual awakening type Kundalini experiences and things of that nature, poltergeist activity. Lloyd Auerbach, matter of fact, in San Francisco, is part of our network as well when we ever get involved with the poltergeist activity.
Right.
So anyway, one of the things that we've done more recently is to set up a online support group, which is totally confidential. If you go to our website, which is opusnetwork.org, you can go into a section and tell us what your story and what you're looking for as far as assistance. And it's incredible how useful this has been, because all these experiences, we've got over 200 now that are active in the support group, and they're from around the world. We got people from Australia, from the UK, from South America, and they're talking 24/7 and telling their stories and asking questions. I must have like 35,000 emails, built up over time, which people keep telling me I should write a book, but it's like, God, I got to go through all those emails. It drive me crazy. But anyway, it's really worked out. And one of the things that we were really happy to have happen was initially MUFON. I had convinced the past international chairman to work with us, because they didn't have a setup. They were more nuts and bolts type organization.
Right.
And didn't really, we're not into this alien abduction stuff. So I said, well, I'm here, I'm doing this. And so if you get calls, send them to me. So I have recordings of these people calling into MUFON and telling their stories. and I have a presentation that I do, and I put these on there, and I blur out the names and phone numbers and things like that. And it's just dramatic. You can hear how upset these people are, telling their stories and what happened to them, and they're looking for help. So based on that, I was the person that started the initial group within MUFON called the AERC, the Abduction Experiencer Research Committee. And you guys are familiar with DMT?
Yes, I've heard of it.
You've heard of that a few times?
Familiar.
Well, Strassman was on our committee. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Working to basically develop a report, and it's called the Omega-3 report. And if you go on our website under the clinical section, you'll see this report. And we took 72 abductees and 52 people that were a control group, and we had 8 vehicles that they had to go through. Okay. And basically, in a nutshell, these people did not have a psychopathology. They weren't crazy.
Right.
They weren't fantasy prone, which a lot of these people talk about. They had an interesting thing going on with their brain, though, in the temporal lobe area, limbic system. And I talked to Eric Mitchell, who you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
about that. And he was, the minute I said that, he looked at me and he says, "Yeah, we understand that's happening."
Uh-huh.
And so we want to do another study, and of course we're always looking for people. So if there's any psychologists out there that would like to participate in a future study, let me know.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys let them know.
Yeah.
Because we're all, begging to know the answer.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's interesting. I don't know a whole ton about MUFON, but it was the first thing that I looked up when I really started getting serious about researching UFOs. I remember when Joe, you were like, "Hey, we should become MUFON members," and started to check it out. I didn't really realize that there was a difference between "Hey, I want to report a sighting," or "Hey, I didn't know that something did not exist yet." That to the support group side of it.
Right.
And it's really cool that that's happening, and you guys are partnering.
Yeah,
partnering with
MUFON now has a group. Okay, they changed the name. Now it's the ERT, which is the Experiencer Research Team, and Kathleen Martin, who is the head of it, along with George Medich, who I don't know if you guys probably too young to remember it. George Medich is a pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he's really a neat guy. Anyway, so they've developed this group, and we get on Zoom about once a month and chat about cases and things like that. So now MUFON has a vehicle where if their investigators come in contact with somebody, they can then turn it over to the ERT group, okay? And I'm a research consultant for the group, and so we can then decide what to do with it. And we have resources, and OPUS is one of the resources for the team.
That's great.
Which I'm really happy about.
Yeah.
They haven't forgot about us. And it's incredible, the stories that come our way, and the things that have happened. During one of the support group meetings when I was still here in San Jose, a person looked at me and said, "Wow, you look familiar. I've seen you before." And I said, "Oh, really? Where? At a grocery store? The gas station? Blah blah blah." He says, "No, I saw you aboard the ship." And I said, "What?" Aboard the ship. Okay, so I kind of blew it off. Because I have no conscious recollection of any of that happening.
Right.
Because people have asked me, "Why are you so involved in all this?" And I said, "I don't have a clue."
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Yes.
Was
Was
there a personal thing that happened to you that kind of pushed you in this direction, or kind of like us is we've seen lights in the sky, right?
Yeah.
But we also don't know anything about an abduction, not that we know of, but there's a strange push in this direction of interest.
Yeah, well, it all started when I lived in Connecticut, and it was 1958, and it was a late October evening, and I was coming back in the house after feeding my dog, and I saw this white oval object silently hovering over a tree line, and it scared the crap out of me. And so I ran in the house and tried to get my father to come out, and by the time I convinced him to come out, he was gone. I mean, the object was gone.
Yeah,
right. But the next day, I had this desire to follow up and do some reading. So I went to the library, all right? Father took me down there, went to the library, and whose book did I pick up? George Adamski.
All right.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
George Adamski's book, about the Venusians and the ships, and I mean, it was blew me away. Anyway, long story short, I grew up, went to college, got married, had kids, and then I moved from Connecticut to California in 1985. And I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, and Stanton Freeman was going to talk about UFOs and a government cover-up. So, I went there to the session and expecting to see a handful of people. Auditorium was full.
Whoa.
It was like 300 people. And MUFON had a table in the foyer where they were talking about, their monthly journal that they produce. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna get this journal. And I started, really getting into it. And then it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. I said, I got to do more. So I became a field investigator. And that's how that whole thing started, with investigating these cases and turning out to be abduction-type cases. And that's how it all went down. Now, I've had regressions, multiple regressions, trying to understand, because in another subsequent support group meeting, like almost 2 years later, a different person said, hey, I've seen you before. I said, oh, where? The grocery store, gas station? No, I saw you on board the craft, and you were freaking out, and they told me to go over it and calm you down.
Oh my
Whoa.
God! So what did you say back to that person? Did you say?
Well, at that point, I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say, and so that's when I started to go and have regressions, because I wanted to find out. And I've had multiple past lives. I was a Spaniard at one time. I was a Greek another time. I was a Japanese samurai at one point.
Oh, cool. Ninja Turtle. Ninja Turtle. Sweet. That's cool. That would be something I'd be interested in, finding out about past lives. Like, what were you? Here in the other little room over here with all the books and people selling stuff.
Exhibitor room.
We had, what was her name? Did she give you a card on that?
Stone Muse.
Yeah, the Stone Muse in there.
Yeah, magic box.
We walked up. She was talking to Ben.
She told me her name, but I'm bad at names.
She was like, "Oh,
so
I can
awesome
tell,
though.
like, you have like a mantis guide, with you, and like, you have like this lineage of like Viking in you and stuff like that." It was kind of mind blowing, and then I walk up and she's like, "Oh, you're a lion. You're from the Lyrian." Constellation.
Right?
It's like,
oh wow,
oh cool. Like, so to find out, like, just if I was like a farmer or like, maybe a train conductor back in the day, maybe I could have been a samurai too. Yeah. I think that would be super interesting to know, because right now all I know is that I'm from a different star system. Yeah. I would like to kind of know, maybe was I something here on Earth too?
Yeah, right.
It's really interesting.
Oh, yeah, it is. And most of those past lives were military involvement. I was, some kind of a soldier or something.
Cool.
And matter of fact, in this lifetime, I was in the artillery. I was, a lieutenant in the field artillery. And so, I don't know, that's a real strong thing going on in my existence.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like some sort of like the need to be a leader or to help in some way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's very interesting. It's very cool. It's very, very interesting, man.
So I was curious, like, Do you guys have, I guess, meetings on a regular basis and like kind of come together and say like, oh, there's a lot of stuff happening in this part of the world, or is there some kind of I'm just curious, like, is there some kind of commonality at certain times of years or anything like that? I've always been curious about that.
Well, there does seem to be what happens with us, like after something like this, where people all of a sudden something comes to mind, triggered by somebody talking about a certain subject, and then all of a sudden we'll get an influx of people contacting our site and saying, you know what, I had this memory and I'd like to look at it further. So we'll try to give them a hypnotherapist in their area that is familiar with the topic. So that does occur, based around a lot of these UFO conventions and things of that nature. There's certainly hotspots around the world, where sightings are happening. Certain times of the day, are more popular than others.
3 a.m. maybe is a common one, right? Like 3 a.m. is like a very high strangeness part of the morning.
People going outside to have a cigarette. I swear, a lot of the cases that I got involved with, the person said, well, I was out on my balcony and I was smoking a cigarette when...
They're trying to tell you something.
Quit smoking.
Quit smoking.
So is Opus like one organization, or are there like multiple around the United States, or is it just something that you can contact and they'll put you?
What it is that we're officially a nonprofit organization recognized by the IRS, a 501(c), and our official headquarters is in Sacramento.
Okay.
I'm in Texas. I'm the co-founder and chairman now of the organization, and so we're basically, we have a board of directors. And I don't know if you've interviewed Terry Lovelace yet, but he's going to
he's next on our list.
Okay, good man. Matter of fact, he's one of our advisory board members.
Oh wow.
Linda Moulton Howe is one of our advisory board members, and Yvonne Smith is another advisory board member.
So you got an A-team with you.
Oh, great people. And we work with Barbara Lamb as well. And in our early days, Bud Hopkins was one of our advisors. And you guys remember the name Phil Klass?
Yeah.
My first MUFON symposium in Albuquerque, New Mexico, he was there. And I'm sitting at the bar, and he sits down next to me, and, I was drinking a scotch, and he ordered a scotch, and we started chatting, and so I asked him, I knew who he was, I recognized him, and he said, so, what do you do? What's your interest here, and all that kind of stuff. And I started telling him about Opus, and he was very complimentary, and gave me advice. He says, now be careful. He says, because there's a lot of crazy people out there. And, so just be careful. And so it was a very pleasant conversation with Phil Klass of all people.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's kind of a different take on Philip Klass,
Oh, very much so.
Because usually it's like, he just came and tried to, talk as much shit as possible, just debunking constantly. So that's a nice little spin on that name for sure. Yeah. So throughout the years of you doing this, have you, because it is dealing with like, whether it be like ghost activity or UFOs or just some strange happenings, have you guys maybe found like a correlation between all of the incidents?
There's I think they're all related. It's part of the puzzle. You got the poltergeist over here, and you got the UFO here, and then you got the orbs down here, and then you got the interdimensional beings and the time travelers, all of the 1980 Rendlesham Forest thing, where they said these guys were coming back from 40,000 years in the future, to harvest stuff. And, it's whatever you can think of. Literally, whatever you can possibly think of is it.
It seems like the phenomenon kind of interacts with the imagination of the human.
The last thing that Hynek said, J. Allen Hynek said, was consciousness.
Right.
Whatever consciousness is can manifest in a way that, is an orb, or it's a flying saucer, or it's a poltergeist, and that consciousness, that energy never dissipates.
Right.
When you
Right.
die, that energy just goes somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's a doctor that had an experience, a near-death experience, and she was kayaking down in South America somewhere and went over a waterfall and was trapped for half an hour under the water. And during that time, she saw these, what she called these angelic entities, and she felt so good that she didn't want to go back. Didn't want to go back, and they told her, "You have to go back. There's things that you need to do." But then they also told her, which blew my mind, that her son, who was little at the time, was going to die when he was 18 years old. So she never told her son that, right? Okay, obviously.
Yeah.
And son of a gun, when he turned 18, he had a car accident and died.
Oh no. Dang.
Yeah.
insane.
So time, you can just go in anywhere and say, okay, here's the past, here's the present, and here's the future. But it doesn't matter where you are. You can access it. You can access it anywhere. That's still, to this day, when I heard that story, it just absolutely blew me away.
Right,
And
right, man. That's powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
It's very powerful stuff, man.
Yeah. I keep thinking about this. Like, I think there's like a theme here with like consciousness and time, and I feel
Yes.
like it's really linear time is only specific to humans in this this reality right now. And once you get past the physical body, it's like more and more stories that I hear like that. That is, once you're not a human and you're just like a consciousness that's manifested in another intelligence, like time really doesn't matter anymore. Like,
It's true. It's true. And then you think about, if in fact we are dealing with extraterrestrials, how can they come these distances, with our, physics that doesn't allow that, because you can't go faster than the speed of light, which now I think is passé.
Right,
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Folks. They figured it out.
that's the limit.
Yeah, they figured it
I
out.
think they have too. I think it's just, that was just another mental block or hurdle onto the next step.
Yeah.
Not being able to go faster than light was just where we, as far as we could take it at the time.
Yeah.
Now times have changed, and I don't believe that anymore
Yeah.
at all. I think there's a lot more to it. Like you said, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely
Yeah.
agree.
And I think we're starting to figure out bits and pieces of the UFO situation, in the sense that if you're a nuts and bolts kind of a guy, which I started out being, very much a nuts and bolts kind of guy, in conversations that I've had with Lou Elizondo, as a matter of fact, I had lunch with him 3 or 4 months ago. He had come to actually interview Terry Lovelace.
Oh, right on.
I think he's going to appear on the next season of the Unidentified.
Right.
Okay.
And they figure that the skin of the craft is integral in the ships being able to do what they do, along with not a huge power source. Evidently, it's very, very small amount of power is required to drive this thing. And so when you see that going on, it's like, or hear that, it's like, whoa, we are getting closer. If they think that, and there's these meta metals that they keep talking about,
Right.
Yeah.
that's the thing that's key to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's key to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been people who have spoke at this conference that have said things that, if any of that is absolutely true, then that already is proof that we're way beyond,
Yeah.
what we currently think we understand of like mainstream physics or science or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot to it. Matthew being one of them.
Yeah.
He had some crazy, like some really awesome ideas
really interesting
of
stuff to say.
What he was talking about with the orbs and energy and going faster than light, and how we've already figured all this stuff out, and he was just very confident about it. And like I said, just some of the stuff that people have said here it kind of makes you like, okay, yeah, we're definitely on that next level.
Yeah, I think we're lucky, especially you guys who are a lot younger than me. You really might see a full disclosure happening where they just come out and say, yeah,
screw it.
This is it, boys.
Yeah. You kind of feel it a little bit, kind of in the air. I think right now everybody's still kind of on edge. It's like, okay, are you just trying to distract us again, or is there something genuine disclosure-wise going on? And I think that's a safe position to have right now. Are you tricking us, or is this a real thing? Because you don't exactly have the best history, but at the same time, if you think about it, you can understand the reasoning behind some of the secrecy, the trickery, some of the stuff is unexcusable, obviously, but it's just trying to play devil's advocate, trying to be balanced on both ends, see it from their point of view, but then also see it from just a regular human. If there is this technology or this something that can help the earth, and there's just millions of people suffering, it's a very double-edged sword. I understand the secrecy, but at the same time, can we help people with this stuff?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I've always said, from a nuts and bolts type of standpoint, if we can figure out how these things operate, can you imagine, and the power sources that they're utilizing, and it's not causing. You can't see any pollution coming out of these things, It's and so if we understand that, get rid of the fossil fuel industry, and therefore we'll have cleaner water, cleaner air, and all these vehicles that are pumping out all kinds of toxic stuff, going electric, and it's just a lot of things that would be super positive, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you described yourself. You used to be a nuts and bolts kind of a guy, and when you're in this realm of topic, you see that a lot. A lot of people come in nuts and bolts, and then kind of by the end of it, they're like, I am nuts and bolts, right? But at the same time, it's like, dude, some stuff we just can't explain.
Well, in dealing with the abductees, the initial phase, there's 3 phases to that process. And the initial phase is traumatic, very traumatic. And then the second phase is that they come to accept it, okay, and not be as traumatized. And then the third stage is when it stops. It's kind of like the Stockholm syndrome. They say, what happened? How come they're not, doing anything with me anymore? But that whole process becomes a spiritual journey. It's very spiritual.
Yeah.
It's totally spiritual. And then that gets back to the consciousness and all of that, because almost without exception, and in this omega-3 study that we did, people, unanimously say, we have to be better to one another. We have to be better to the planet. We have to not pollute, take care of the creatures of the planet. I mean, it's all positive, real positive stuff, which is super spiritual, spiritual.
It's so strange, when you think about it, that we as humans have to have something tell us that. Doesn't that all just sound like a good idea to be doing in the first place? We're such a strange creature.
Yeah. Well, it's ever more evident that our consciousness as humans right now, we're very much in our teenage years, where we're I'm gonna do this until I get away with it, and unless somebody tells me hey, dude, y'all should not make a mess.
It's kind of destructive and invincible.
I think that's kind of our consciousness right now. That's kind of, I feel like we're kind of in our teenage years. Like
At the
we
same
haven't
time,
been
you
slapped
can
on the
kinda
wrist
feel
yet.
us,
You know?
like,
We need to get grounded a
collectively-
little bit.
Yeah, starting to grow a little bit as well. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot more people who are becoming
Yeah.
more self-aware
Yeah.
and like, oh, look at what we are doing. Like maybe we should pay more attention to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and you see that, which is
Yeah.
is really really cool.
So maybe we're past maybe we're around like 20 years
We're
old.
starting
maybe
to have to pay our
21.
own bills,
Yeah,
get off our
yeah.
parents' insurance. You know, we're starting to have to pay our own phone bill. It's like I can't party all night. I
Right.
gotta go to work tomorrow. I can't even afford to
Nuts.
sleep. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where we are in the human consciousness. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Man, I think what you guys are doing is extremely important.
Yeah.
I think that's a really awesome thing. And, you know, with us doing this show, you know, occasionally people will ask us, you know, for advice, you know, but we're not professionals.
Yeah, we don't have any.
We, you know, we can maybe direct you into
Right.
you know, a certain area of somebody who can help you. And this is awesome because this opens up a whole new lane for us to be able to
Oh,
help
yeah.
people get the help that they need.
Well, I tell you what, it'd be fantastic if, you know, you utilize this as a resource.
Absolutely.
You know, and to help people, because most of the time they don't know where to turn.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
they've gone on, you know, Google things, and then they may contact a certain site, and then they don't get feedback, or they don't
Right.
get contacted. But we, you know, our efforts, if somebody contacts us, we want to be back to them within 24 hours max.
That's
Oh, wow.
amazing.
That's
Man,
great.
that's so
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
very
yeah.
good.
And we get, you know, 2 to 3, maybe even 4 people a week that contact us. And
Wow.
so since 94, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely
It's
is.
amazing. Yeah, I feel like,
Absolutely is.
I mean, just you guys seem like great guys. It seems like a very comfortable thing. It's not like an intimidation kind of thing. Like, oh, we're just in it to get more information. You guys are really like wanting to help. You know. Which
Well,
is
thank
really
you.
cool. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have good people on our regular board. Garrett, who's in the vendor room with all his artwork. He's a fantastic artist.
Oh, the sculptor, the guy that has the sculptor.
No.
Sculptures.
He's all in the far corner on the left-hand side.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Garrett Moore, and then we got Ruben Oriate, who is the state director for Northern California for MUFON.
Cool.
So he was here briefly today. And
Oh yeah, we saw him
yeah.
sitting right there.
He was a little under the weather, so he left. But we have Mike Buckley, who is a medical doctor who's in this area. So we have people like that are really concerned. You know, have the backgrounds that are. You know, Garrett is actually an experiencer himself, and
Really.
so it helps when you have people that are familiar with it. You know, they're not coming from a non-related background. You know,
Right,
they're kind
right,
of
yeah.
into that kind of thing. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well, that's good, man. Well, let's tell everybody where they can get a
Yep.
hold of you guys.
All right.
Websites and all
Yep.
that stuff.
Great. Yeah, if you go to our website, which is opusnetwork.org, all right, you'll get a full picture of what we do, and you'll be able to contact us through there. And we'd love to hear from you. If you've got concerns or you need some kind of help, we're here for that. And we also have a Facebook presence, Opus. And if you just put in Opus, OPUS, you need to put in, unfortunately, Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. So this is a long thing, but we're there.
Because Google might think that you meant to spell hippopotamus or
Right, something
Right,
weird,
right.
or Opus Die or something. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, Les, thank you so much for stopping by today,
Well,
man. This
yeah.
has been great.
Thank
I
you
really
guys. I really
it.
appreciate it.
All right.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So you guys don't forget to go and check out Opus. If you need any help, these guys are here to help you with anything that you have going on, whether it be aliens, ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, right? Whatever.
Well,
right?
we haven't done Bigfoot yet,
Well,
but
if you're stomping all over your garden and you need some help, I'm sure these guys can figure something out, right? Ben, you got anything to say to the folks?
Bye.
We'll see y'all later. Take it easy, guys.